Thank you. All right, everybody, I'll call to order this meeting of the Budget and Finance Committee of the Town Council. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. We have two sets of minutes to approve. So first, the November 18th, 2025 meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next is the December 2nd, 2025 meeting minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Moving on to C, public comment. Are there any comments from the public before we start? Awesome. Moving on to D, discussion. So this is our only agenda item for this evening, but I thought it'd be good to have a very high level conversation of what the FY27 budget timeline could look like. I know our finance director printed off the schedule of last year's FY26 schedule. And what that looked like, I imagine will follow something similar, although some things have changed with capital planning. We've kind of got ahead of that piece.
Right.
And so maybe if we could just run through what this looks like and maybe some general timelines or updates we have. And then hopefully we can map this out in the coming weeks.
So I'll just quickly say, I'm gonna have Lori speak a bit to it because Lori's been at the table with me, everything we've been doing finance wise. But obviously, as we look to the calendar, we've got to have some things to be cognizant of, there's a lot of work to be done here. So we are gonna keep this really high level. I'll chime in as necessary, but I'll let Lori speak to kind of what we've done before.
Yeah, I'm just.
Can I actually offer something that we found out
Sure.
today? The joint meeting between the school district, because I don't know if you were made aware of that. Justin, you were on that email.
I forwarded to
Oh, you didn't? So never mind. I'll step aside then.
Yeah, I forwarded to Lori.
So yeah, we definitely have already started the budget process. So, generally we try to, we get the school's schedule, we get you guys's council schedule. And we try to work it out, and it's, it's always in flux, but goes in hand with your budget resolution. And we've already actually begun the process. We've met 2 or 3 times now with the school, the school in the town of Raynham. So we met here once, we met over in the superintendent's office once, just talking about general timelines and trying to work with the superintendent and the town of Raynham and their finance director. So it was Justin and I, town of Raynham, town administrator and their finance director, and then the assistant superintendent and Mr. Powers. So we're already talking about what our timeline looks like, what our resolution, what it was looking like, and so we've already had like I said 2 or 3 discussions. We're trying to work with the superintendent to let him before he goes in the pie in the sky budget, work with us to get our forecast together, see what the revenues and go from there. So
I want to expand on that a little bit. I know in the last few years we haven't done a forecast, for example, and this is why we're saying there's a lot of work that we're trying to do. Lori and I will look at doing a forecast, presenting that information. Part of our discussions with Raynham and the school district is trying to give them as much information that we can early, so they have time to prepare, because we also have to acknowledge their budget schedule is a little different than ours, obviously.
Mhm.
It's also different from the state, right? Their budget, theoretically, their budget subcommittee work goes before the governor even releases their numbers. So you have to acknowledge that process too. So we're trying to do our end to give them as much information that we can, and we're trying to move as quickly as possible to do that. The communication lines are open, and we'll try to move this process, a little bit quicker than what it's typically been, to allow for more collaboration and discussion.
and we have down below this is, I go out on the website and I see when they're meeting and everything. So try to capture what their timeline is and then try to coordinate ours with it. But obviously we're working with you guys. We want your input, your collaboration, and we'll make it all work. So again, this is high level. This is kind of how we've done it in the past few years, but I also acknowledge that this year is going to be tough. We're going to need a lot more. We want to be more transparent, more collaborative, and that's why we kind of pushed up our capital to get it ahead of time so we can just focus on the operations budget for fiscal 27. So.
It's great. It's a good start. Do you want to share that news?
Oh, yeah, did you already mention that the joint meeting between Bridgewater, Rainham and the school district? Did I miss that?
Well, we've been meeting with the superintendent.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
we haven't,
yeah.
and specifically the question about, and I gotta understand what
Yeah,
they're referring to as process,
yeah,
because, obviously, I think we've talked about having a joint meeting with them in January. I think that discussion is had. I think there'll be another additional meeting after
yeah.
that.
Last year it was on February 4th.
Yeah.
We did have it with them.
Yeah, that,
It was
if I
great.
recall, was essentially a discussion of what they had presented, and this meeting is a conversation about what may be presented. And I prefer that because
Absolutely.
there are less surprises, so we can
Right.
kind of see where
Yep.
they're at, and we can be a little more collaborative. So
Yeah.
that was, I guess it's scheduled, or at least suggested to be scheduled
Mhm.
Wednesday, January 21st,
Mhm.
6:30 p.m. at the high school. I did mention that we had previously discussed having it here, but they want to have it at the high school, and I guess they're going to coordinate with BTV and Raycam to potentially be there and record.
Why are we having it here? It's horrible. It's
That's
their mics. I mean, because
So this is a joint meeting with Rainham and Bridgewater, though.
Rainham, Bridgewater, and the
Yeah, the
school.
school.
I hope they do their mics because it's
No.
horrendous. I mean, they don't even have enough mics, so they kind of,
So when we talked, sorry to interrupt,
it's
did you
okay.
finish your train of thought? When we talked preliminarily with Ryan and this team regarding, obviously this is a discussion of the councils and everything too, but we had talked about it as well early and that date was mentioned, but we also did offer coming to our council chambers as well because of some of the logistic issues that have been mentioned. Obviously now it's you guys' call and navigating that, but we offered that as well. We talked about that.
I mean, you can't even hear it on TV.
Yeah, I could push back and offer that again. I did offer that in my email to Chair King, and she said that they would like to have it at the high school, so I could let them know that we, would like to prefer to have it here. We feel like we have the best venue for it. I agree with that. I don't know whose call this is ultimately, like who's the host of this meeting.
It's just that more residents complain
Yeah,
about the school committee because you cannot hear them.
it's,
They don't have
it's
enough
hard to
mics.
listen to.
That's the number one complaint that I get all the time.
What we can do is we can double on our end. I think it's collaboration
They don't have
amongst the
cameras?
different, boards and council. But I'll talk with Ryan again after, maybe early next week and just see where they're at.
Yeah.
I don't know if they've changed.
I
So what
think
time
they
is
try
this
to
meeting?
make it neutral though, because.
What
it's-
time is this
the
meeting?
Wednesday, January 21st at 6:30. That's the date at the moment.
Okay.
And this would be in addition to our February 4th meeting that we had last year, where it's just our council and the school.
So yeah.
This is in addition to our standard meeting that we usually have here with the school committee and just our council, right? I think that's what we've done previously, and
Well, we
that's the
did
one
have
that happens quote
actually,
unquote after.
Yeah, that's
Had the school committee, the town council and the finance. committee.
yeah, that was February 4th, it seems like.
Right.
Yeah, so we could do that one after, I suppose, if that's
With the
is that
finance
the plan to continue?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we, this is in flux. We can have as many meetings as everybody wants. So we put in like a time frame of, here's the month of March, how many meetings you want to have. You can have like as much as.
I think directly in terms of the question, the meeting that we're gonna have in January, we would look to have an additional meeting after that.
Yeah,
Right,
Right.
so the initial meeting in January is to see where their budget subcommittee is landed before they have a public meeting.
Mhm.
And you guys deliberate and converse with that, but I think our approach is let's collaborate as much as possible. We'll have an additional meeting after that.
Yep.
Yeah, that date we don't have just yet, obviously, but that's what the intent.
would be sometime in February.
And that typically aligns with one of our meetings. Typically, we have it right before our scheduled council meeting, and that's what we've done in the past. But
Yep.
MJ, did you hear that?
Yeah.
Or the finance committee as well too.
Yeah.
Awesome. In terms of our public hearing, ours typically takes place again at almost the last minute. I don't know if there's an opportunity to move that up or to consider that a little bit earlier in the process, but
I think that's set by the charter.
the date.
Well, the timeline from the submission of the town manager's budget on April 1st
Just the public hearing.
to the, 45 days or is some, this amount, language there.
Well, what I will say to that, because I'm not prepared to answer that question tonight.
Yeah.
But I say, I think what we're doing is realizing we want to try to get as much information out, the good information, right? We want to have a good budget process. I'm not going to rush the budget process just to get it out there. We're going to look at this decisions, we're going to go through our budget process that we typically do. But I do anticipate if there is flexibility to come a little bit sooner, we'll do that because I think it's going to necessitate further discussion, right? And that's why we did the capital plan so early.
Yeah.
So we can get out ahead of that and now just focus to transition in there.
And the way it always lies too, I mean, I know by charter it's difficult in both senses, but the new council is approving the budget on day one,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which also
the
makes it very
election,
difficult for
yeah.
new folks.
Yeah,
We acknowledge it.
we acknowledge that.
Charter can be changed. We haven't adhered to the charter all the
Yeah.
time either. So
I'm just throwing out
some
some
flexibility there, right?
Yeah, some things to think about and consider, yeah.
Yeah,
But I agree, we don't have to put anything in writing.
So we do have, starting, in January, we get January, February, March, April. That's me coming back.
Anything else from you all that you'd like to see and implement throughout the process?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the annual budget policy in the chart because it was just mentioned. And this talks about that joint meeting. And I think Deb suggested February 2nd for that joint meeting. It says the council president shall call a joint meeting of the town council, the regional school district committee chairperson, the finance committee, the town manager, and any other committee established for the budget process before the commencement of the budget process to review the financial condition of the town, revenue and expenditure, blah, 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 blah. So I don't know if that explicitly means that has to happen February 3rd or if it just has to happen sometime in the budget process before it actually commences. I don't know what signifies as commencing.
Right. Because that's why I wanted to be clear about, like Lori said, we've started our budget process. I mean, we've had conversation, but we haven't really started our budget. I think if we're going to have that conversation in February, that seems probably the logical time because we're going to have to talk with our departments. We have to look at our revenue figures. Those are all the things that we have to do. February is probably a sufficient time to talk about that.
I think historically, it's been February 1st, we come out with our sources and uses, which is just the preliminary of here's what general government is caught, based on our last year, with the forecasting, what it looks to be, is what our revenues look to be. So they're all projections, but it's an early indication of how much money the piece of the pie will have to be broken out to. So
Going back to the charter, we talked about the 45 days. It says the town council shall adopt the budget with or without amendments within 45 days following the date the budget is filed with the clerk of the town council. So I don't know if that allows us flexibility in examining a preliminary budget before it's filed with the council clerk. I don't know what signifies as being filed with the council clerk. I don't know what flexibility we have in discussing preliminary budgets, forecasting, or anything like that.
Forecasting is forecasting. That's not a budget. So we're working on trying to give a forecast early. I think that's important for everyone. I'd like to set that standard moving forward, even though we haven't done it before. And I know Lori wants to do that too. So we're trying to work to that. Realizing we have a lot on our plates right now, but we're trying to do that. So I think that's separate from the budget process. The preliminary budget discussion, I don't know about that just yet, Johnny. This is my first budget with Lori. I want to make sure it's done properly and done the right way. So once again, the commitment we're going to do is we're trying to get it out a little bit sooner, give people enough time. But it's got to be the right process. And that's what I'm focused on.
Yeah. One thing to add to that, and don't comment on this, respectfully.
I won't comment if I don't feel comfortable.
Yeah,
But if
I don't
do
think you will, but I think one thing that was really helpful for me last year when we talked about override numbers and budgeting, we had the chance to talk to Chief Select and Chief Del Monte, both in that process. And I think it was great to hear from them sort of what they've been doing for the year, where they're going with things, They talked about staffing needs, different things of that nature. And so I don't know if there's any opportunity within the process to be able to hear from some department heads. And I know that's your peer review,
Yeah.
but I do think it's helpful to just talk them through about, their expectations, how they've been operating. And I would suggest maybe we include the library director or the senior center.
Go no further. That's easy. I can comment on
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Lori and I have talked about this. We really believe that budgeting, and I say this often, so it's not lip service. It's a vision and a direction for a community.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to hear from the department heads. So obviously, talking to my departments as we navigate this, I want them to tell you in the community what they do, what their needs are. I think that's an important process. So there's gonna be nuances to this budget process that haven't been the same, because that's my philosophy, that's our philosophy. Obviously, I need a little time to get things
Yeah.
together for that, but that will definitely be a part of the process.
That's awesome. I just thought it was great to be able to ask questions and hear from them too last year.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
More charter referrals.
Love these
I'm a nerd, man. I like,
Engineer.
I am an engineer in my prior life.
At least they'll all get to,
What's that?
at least they'll all get to the legislature.
Yeah. So it calls for a mid-year review. I know that, I don't see it on here. Can't remember if we did that officially last year. I wasn't on this committee, so I'm not sure if that happened, but it does call for a mid-year budget presentation, basically budgeted to actuals.
Mhm.
We kind of do that as part of our process in here. Are we going to do that formally in January?
Yeah, well, I mean,
We'll talk about it.
Mhm.
The reason why I don't want to make a commitment to that is there's nothing we're gonna hide regarding that. It's budget to actions.
Yeah.
I can make a commitment to do a lot more things expedited and do some of the other things too, right?
Mhm.
So we have to focus on what makes sense for us. For example, I think we know the forecast hasn't been done these past few years, right?
well, yeah, I mean, we didn't have a town manager for 2 years either.
So
there was
we
no
did-
one to send
So
it
we
to.
didn't have that capability. We want to do that. We want some other process to go there. So, I don't know. I want to make sure we give a good budget timely so we can have the discussions that we need to have. A mid-year budget review is important, but I think you want to have the fiscal year 27 budget discussion, any other decisions we may have and council may have regarding other options. That's more important. So will we endeavor to do it? Yes. I'm not making, I gotta get this other stuff done too. Fair?
When do the motor vehicle excise tax estimates come out? Those are in January?
Yep, so the file comes from the registry, it's usually mid-January, and then we start scrubbing it and working on that. So that's usually the indicator of where the economy is, so.
Yeah.
It's a really good indicator. And every year we're like, oh, we're gonna be conservative, but every year everyone's buying cars, so we're like, okay, this is the year.
Yeah, we're a little down this year, if I remember correctly from last time we looked at that. So hopefully that comes back. And I think that I would encourage us, at least as a committee, to look at that, because we do
Absolutely.
rely on that as our, would it be second biggest local
Definitely, yeah.
revenue? Yeah,
It
behind
is.
it, besides property taxes. So we need
Yeah,
to keep
I
a
believe
a pulse on that.
as part of the budget process, we're absolutely looking at that.
Yeah.
So that's part of the discussion, because even if we're trying to collaborate with
Mhm.
Rainham and the school district earlier, we have to account for those revenues. So we'll definitely be monitoring them and looking for that as well.
What happens to abandoned homes? When they abandon it for a while? I have one on my street and residents bring it up all the time. Do we know when it's abandoned? If they're not paying their taxes, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I can follow up. I mean, if there's a lien on it, if it's a collectible.
What we would do is if there's a lien on a property or something, like they're not paying taxes, there's a finance process that goes through a lien. There's a long process.
Does someone go out and check, make sure there's no one in the home? You know what I mean?
Well, I think
That's
the
passed.
police are pretty good about it.
The fire department would be good. That's what I thought, because it's overgrown and stuff, but I said, I will ask today.
We can follow.
Okay.
Anything else further on the timeline, please?
No, I think it's enough right now. Before our full next meeting. Lot to work on.
section, I'm just kidding.
Go for it, Jim.
All right, with
Yeah.
that then, move on to any public comments. Any comments from the public? Yes, Louise?
I wanted to say compliments on what you've done so far. And I noticed that you have the 11th fireman put on for the remainder of the year. Is that correct?
Yes, so there's an order. Oh, sorry. Oh,
That's excellent. And so I just wanted to say that's excellent. And so well done with this, I think.
sorry, my nature is just to respond when we can, but you know, I know we'll address it at the meeting later tonight.
Okay.
It's on there.
The chart, sorry.
Yeah. Sorry.
Any other questions?
I would say the process is working really well so far. The half of the year is good to review it. At one point in the past, we had been told we had structural deficit in the middle of the year. And what that kind of a surprise.
Yeah.
Well, if anything like
That's fair.
that's, what, you know, we're on top of that. I mean, we're, usually we get to December anyway, the mid-year, and that's what we're forecasting, you know, using for a budget
And
anyway.
it takes
So-
time to close out the year, just like the end of the fiscal year in December.
Well, December's a quarter, so we'll have two good quarters, so then we have a good indicator.
Yeah.
We, you know, we're working on the tax bills now, getting that out, so, you know, we have a good indication of where rest of the year's going, so
Wheels and
the wheels are going, they sure are.
See, our nature is the responder, and
Oh,
it's crazy.
sorry.
We need to train ourselves a little bit. But yes,
If the answers are available, it says
Yes,
that you
okay.
should respond.
there you go.
Jason disagrees with
Yeah,
that. So.
so. And we're here, you know, if there's other questions that we don't, that's what Lori and I are here for further discussion, we can talk about that.
Any other comments? Okay. Quick and efficient tonight. Move on to adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
All right.